Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the absolutely fascinating, sometimes pretty dark, but honestly brilliant history behind the world's premier luxury sports car brand. We're going to trace this relentless cycle of innovation, ruin, and rebirth that shaped a company like literally no other.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because here is the fundamental question. There is this stark, almost unimaginable contrast between Porsche's dark history, designing heavy military machinery for a world at war, and its modern identity as the absolute pinnacle of sleek, high-end performance. So, how did we get from point A to point B? Well, to understand that, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning.
Chapter 1. The Electric Pioneer. Let's look at Ferdinand's early years.
Now, before the iconic roar of modern gas-guzzling sports cars, Ferdinand Porsche's real obsession in the late 1800s was actually electricity. As an 18-year-old in 1893, he joins Bella Agger & Company, and that's where he builds his very first electric wheel hub motor. The guy's talent is just undeniable. So by 1898, he moves to Jakob Lohner & Company to apply this exact motor technology directly to self-powered vehicles, completely leaving horse-drawn carriages in the dust. And just 2 years later, in 1900, he achieves something truly groundbreaking.
It's kind of wild to realize that the hybrid engine was actually born over a century ago. The Porsche P1 was his first automobile. It was fully electric, but it had a massive problem. It was weighed down by these incredibly heavy lead-acid batteries. That limited it to just a 49-mile range and a top speed of only 21 miles per hour. Ferdinand realized pretty quickly that electric power had severe weight limitations. So what did he do? He innovated. He added an internal combustion engine to power the electric motors, basically creating the Lohner Porsche Electromobile. This bumped the speed up to 36 miles per hour and completely shattered Austrian speed records.
Let's look at how this builds his reputation over the next few decades. Ferdinand basically becomes the go-to genius for other car manufacturers. He proves that smaller, lighter vehicles can absolutely dominate on the track. His Austro-Daimler Sascha wins an incredible 43 out of 53 races. After that, he designs the legendary Mercedes-Benz SSK, which hits speeds of up to 235 kilometers per hour. But eventually he gets tired of creative differences of corporate boards, right? So he takes a massive leap in 1931 and founds his very own consulting firm Porsche GmbH, bringing along his super talented son, Ferry.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, the dark history.
The World War II era.
Opening a business during the fallout of the First World War and the Great Depression was, well, incredibly difficult. The new company was patched with engineering talent, but they had absolutely zero clients. That all changed in 1933. Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany and set his sights firmly on the automotive industry. He called a meeting with the country's top engineers, including Porsche, and made a really unprecedented demand. He wanted a family car that was highly fuel-efficient and cheap, and we're talking really cheap, just 990 Reichmarks. To put that into perspective, most engineers at the time considered that figure completely, literally impossible.
But Ferdinand Porsche submitted a design anyway, and he won the contract. The result was the Volkswagen, or the people's car, which we all know today as the Beetle. It featured an air-cooled rear-engine design that made steering a total breeze, and it achieved a massive 31.4 miles per gallon. For Porsche as a company, this alliance meant ultimate political backing and basically endless financial resources, removing all of his previous business constraints.
However, that backing came at an immense human and moral cost. When World War II broke out, the Volkswagen factory immediately pivoted to war production. Porsche became deeply embroiled in military projects for the regime. He designed the Schwimmwagen, which was essentially an amphibious military Beetle, as well as these highly complicated heavy tank destroyers like the Ferdinand and Elephant, which actually broke down pretty often. They even worked on the V-1 flying bomb missile. Furthermore, it is a documented historical fact that the company utilized forced slave laborers in their Stuttgart factory. This is an atrocity the company later formally admitted to, eventually establishing funds and compensations for the victims.
Following the war, this heavy involvement with the Nazi regime and Ferdinand's close ties to Hitler inevitably caught up with him. He was arrested by the French government and imprisoned for war crimes. He would end up spending 22 harsh months in a French prison, a grueling period that permanently ruined his health and completely sidelined him from the company he built.
Chapter 3. Out of the Ashes. Ferry's Rebirth.
So with Ferdinand's health broken and the company's reputation in total tatters, Porsche desperately needed a miracle. And that miracle actually came in the form of his son, Ferry. Ferry's strategy to save his family and his business was just an absolute masterclass in determination and business acumen. Step 1, he built the incredibly advanced Cicitalia 360 race car for an Italian manufacturer purely to raise bail money. Step 2, he used those funds to successfully free his father from prison. And step 3, this is where his genius really shines. He leveraged his father's pre-war documents to basically force Volkswagen to pay Porsche a licensing fee for every single Beetle they built, while also securing the right to use VW parts for their own experiments.
Armed with these new financial resources, Ferry introduced the very first car to officially bear the Porsche family name in 1948, the Porsche 356. Powered by a VW air-cooled engine, this small 87-mile-per-hour roadster took a first-place victory at a race in Innsbruck, Austria. And this brilliantly illustrates how quickly things turned around, because when it later won at Le Mans, sales absolutely skyrocketed. Ferdinand lived just long enough to see his son establish Porsche as a standalone, highly successful brand before passing away in 1951.
Moving on to Chapter 4, the iconic 911, a modern legend. While the 356 was a massive hit, fundamentally it was kind of still a variation of the Beetle, and customers were eager for something completely new. That's when Ferry's son F.A. Porsche stepped up to the plate. Now the absolutely crucial point here is how the mechanics of his new car directly dictated its driving experience. The Porsche 911, which launched in 1964, swapped out the old 4-cylinder for a much more powerful 6-cylinder boxer engine. And by placing this air-cooled engine in the rear, F.A. Porsche achieved a very specific weight balance. That balance drastically improved steering and acceleration, creating a uniquely smooth and totally unrivaled driving feel.
But, it wasn't just fast and smooth. It was undeniably resilient. I mean, look at this number, 70%. It is estimated that over 70% of all Porsche 911s ever built are still on the road today. That is just staggering reliability for any vehicle, let alone a high-performance sports car that gets pushed to its absolute limits.
And of course, this unique combination of speed, handling, and insane reliability naturally translated into absolute motorsport supremacy. The 911 didn't just compete, it totally dominated. From the Monte Carlo Rally to the punishing Paris-Dakar and the grueling 24 hours of Daytona, the 911 permanently solidified Porsche's identity as the ultimate manufacturer of competitive sports cars.
Chapter 5, the SUV Gamble, Risking the Legacy. Now you would probably think that this level of global dominance meant they were safe forever, right? Well, nothing lasts forever in the automotive industry. By the late 1980s, shifting exchange rates and massive production costs caused a truly catastrophic plunge in their fortunes. Just look at this trend. In 1986, they sold 46,000 units. By 1991, that number was cut in half to 23,000. And by 1993, they were barely scraping by, selling just 14,000 units. They were bleeding hundreds of millions of Deutschmarks and literally staring total bankruptcy right in the face. They needed a radical, game-changing move.
So in a desperate do-or-die gamble, they announced they were entering the SUV market. As this quote captures perfectly, building a family-friendly four-door SUV didn't sit well with the brand, and that's putting it mildly. Traditional racing purists were absolutely outraged. A Porsche with 4 doors? A family hauler? To them, it seemed like complete sacrilege to the pristine legacy of the 911.
But what you really need to take away from this whole controversy is that this massive gamble is exactly what saved the company. When the Cayenne launched in 2002, it took the brand's signature driving performance and wrapped it in luxury comfort. And it was a massive, undisputed hit. Today, SUVs like the Cayenne and Macan make up over 70% of Porsche's sales in America. That success gives them the immense financial stability they need to just keep perfecting their legendary sports cars.
Which really brings us full circle. Porsche started its life over a century ago with Ferdinand's heavy electric carriages. And today, their best-selling sports cars include the fully electric Taycan. They have constantly survived by anticipating exactly what the future needs. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Considering their endless cycle of innovation, ruin, and brilliant survival, what on earth will Porsche's next great reinvention look like? Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the history behind the things we love.